Hey everybody, we're back. That's right. I'm here to talk yet again to Rick as we're going through just the entire pathway to get out of purgatory and how we're producing, making, and what the Black Ballad Second Chances is all about. So I'm Eric. I'm the lead designer on the project. Let me bring Rick over here so he can tell you what he's doing as well. What's up, Rick?
How's it going? I am still writing things about dead things. Yeah, I'm Rick. I'm co-founder of Storytellers Forge, author, narrative, do the things with Eric.
We just do things.
Things,
We
just
just
random things that in no way involve killing people.
never murder that anyone knows about. So we're going in. We have a lot of stuff we're going through and recording all these on different days. So if we look different, it's because it's a different day. So today we wanted to go over what we love about Shadowdark and like why we decided to bring Black Ballad over. We've kind of talked about a little bit of this, which is Rick was talking to me and I was gushing about Shadowdark being a great system, and you're like, prove it. And I was like, I will prove it, god damn it. And that's kind of how that conversation started over whiskey. But for me, I feel like Shadowdark when I started running it was the first time in a long time, probably since first and second edition D&D, where I felt like your choices mattered. You weren't always looking at your character sheet for a solution. You were looking to yourself and the people at your table and like interacting with people. There was less of this and more of this and talking to people. And I love that. Even though the game is brutal, you can get out of almost any situation at any level if you play smart. And I really love that concept of finding solutions through conversations instead of a magical item that's a +4 that does X, Y, and Z. Like those are great answers to problems, but they shouldn't be your first choice. They should be your later choices. And when I was talking to you about how you do Storytellers Forge stuff, it was like, no, 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 it's about the story.
Yeah, so that was the thing that's what you sold me on with why Shadowdark is cool is because I looked at it, I was like, it's a rules light system, right? It,
Mm-hmm.
it it doesn't have the things that you need to make things go. And you're like, wait, Rick, when you sit at a table, when you're running games, I know you, your style. When you just mentioned looking down and then looking back up, the
Yep.
fact that there isn't an answer to that, or that you might only have one answer, it's going to force you to think about interesting ways to use what you do have to get
Yeah.
out of your scenario. And the absence of a rule forces you to be creative about the scenario in front of you rather than necessarily like, oh, I know that it like this has this many hit points to do this thing with this sphere of effect
Mm-hmm.
to go solve this problem, or you need to go get that magical item. You actually instead look at your sheet and your abilities and you try something off the wall and hope that it works,
Mm-hmm.
because when you don't have the rules you have to invent based off the scenario in hand.
Yeah, you want to keep. I know we are both storytellers at heart. Like that is our calling, so to speak. And being a storyteller at a table, and I was just explaining this to somebody else. The way you write a novel and the way you write a adventure for someone else to run, and the way you run something at the table are all very different skill sets. Even though they seem like they're the same, they run in parallel, but there's different rules for each one of the things that you're doing. And what I liked about Shadowdark when I was running it, and it only took a couple tries, was one, I actually really enjoyed having inventory management, but not having it be Tetris Diablo or having it be weight management. It was about, hey, you can only hold so much stuff. You better have a solution to the problem, and having to make tough choices in the moment. But really, the most important part was kind of what you're saying. The fast rulings of the game let me tell a story quicker and get more done instead of people being buried on what page is my power on. I hate that in games. It's
Right.
so difficult to tell a good story when it gets paused every time about rulings over fun. Like I don't know. And this game doesn't do that.
Uh, Plus, there's inherently some like mechanical elements and themes that tie you into the very aspect of adventuring. Light, the way spellcasting works, are
Mhm.
things that I actually really ended up enjoying. And it wasn't until we went through this project that I realized I never liked tables for leveling up or ways that you got like class features with random rolls
Yeah.
to go up, right?
Yeah.
And then when you really think about it, though, it creates diversity and randomness and forces you to think about your character and the way
Mhm.
that things move. But that's future stuff that I know we're
But,
going to talk
but
about.
people think that when you play Shadowdark, because a table has a number, that you always have to roll. And really, there are table canon that you're going to make with your players. You're going to be like, hey, everybody, this time around, when you roll your stats, put them where you want them, roll your 6, pick the character you want to play, pick what you want this time. Let's not do random rolls. Let's make characters we like. But I think the thing that random rolling does is it doesn't attach your character to them so that when they die, you're not heartbroken. Like when you have a 14-page character from 5e and they die, you're like, I need a break. I don't want to make this character again. And in this game, we're talking about you dying and coming back and dying and coming back and maybe not making it back the third time, depending on how much you unravel in the game. But the game lets you make characters quick. And I agree that having a table for a fighter, like fighter is always my example for this shit. A fighter next to a fighter next to a fighter next to a fighter, the only difference between a fighter is their weapon, usually. Unless you have a very crunchy game. But if you are a story person and you're about the tale of your character, it's the things that have happened to you. It's the emergent gameplay. It's the items that you have on you. It's the +1 that you have in a ranged weapon versus a +1 of the sword. You're now a ranged fighter. You're not a melee fighter. And these are things that make fighters different. But the story and the background of the character matters more in Shadowdark than people realize. There's no skills. There's no skills in this game. If I am, and I always use this as an example, if my background is whaler, any time that whaling would have tying rope, getting food, going fishing, how to field dress something, fix a boat, how to climb, those things let that background tie in. And I don't know, I feel like that's such a quicker way to role play.
There's an old rule of thumb that many of us, if you are playing a game, you've probably done this, where you build yourself as a character at some
Oh,
point,
yes.
and there is never enough skills
No, no.
to be like, wait a minute, wait, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, uh,
Mhm.
because we collect random shit as we level up naturally in life. Um, so sometimes just taking them and chucking them out the door of like, hey, my background, I am this. Can I
What,
just do that?
what would your background be?
What would my background be?
What would you pick if
In
you get one background to start? Like, what background would you take? Like, what would it be?
you know, see, this is the fun part though. For Shadowdark specifically, I would freaking have to dive through like a bajillion things. But in my life, like
Yeah, whatever would work. Would you be an electrician? Would you be a writer? Like what? Like what would you be?
I'd actually start off with artist.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. I would take
Like,
artist. I would 100%.
like,
It means I can do storytelling some if it makes sense. I could be a painter or a drawer or whatever. Like
yeah,
I'm an artist.
yeah, everything else is a trade or a skill or a
Yeah,
thing that I had to learn on my adventuring career.
yeah.
But
Or a crafter. I'm a crafter. Or I'm a lumberjack. Like there's just anytime I'm swinging an axe, guess what, guys? I have advantage now. There's just some fun stuff that I think that lends to it. And so for Black Ballad, when we were talking about Bring It Over, I looked at all the skills for 5e. I probably went through the same process as Kelsey did, where she's like, man, fucking, I don't want all these skills in my game. It slows gameplay down. And everyone's going, is it perception? Is it this? But at the core, it all goes back to one thing, the core 6 stats. And that's what it all goes back to. Do I get a bonus for intelligence, charisma, or not? And then am I proficient? And now you're just replacing proficiency with that background. I felt that it was good, not only for Black Ballad, but for storytelling.
it's good for storytelling. It is perfect for Black Ballad because the part that freaking matters in Black Ballad is the very opening principle line. You died, now what? Right? The fact that we've talked and mentioned that you can come from any game system and
Mm-hmm.
end up in this to
Mm-hmm.
get right into the story and be able to do that fast and quickly with your character.
Mm-hmm.
The 6 core stats and your basic class identity and other are the important parts that you need,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it's your background, your story, your narrative, your character. You already know what you look like, who you are, your elements, but you distill yourself down to a base level of what is the essence of your character to be able to play. And that's what we need to tell our story that we want, and you can do that so fast.
Yeah, and not only is it quick too. So I'm scrolling through the PDF right now. Actually, here I'll pull it up on the screen. But when we were talking about, and we've mentioned this a lot, and I think it's because it's the thing that makes Black Ballad feel like Black Ballad in Shadowdark, is doing the game modes. The fact that you have these two game modes that kind of layer the feeling of the afterlife on top of your character works as a mode that you just turn on and off. Like if you make it in and make it back out, those things go with you. And I never talked about this, and I know we're talking about Shadowdark today, but why did you do memory loss in the original Black Ballad? Like what in history or in life, like what was the piece that made you think why your memories would be taken or you would unravel? Like where did that come from? Because it works so elegantly for the game mode.
So it comes from, in so much fantasy out there, there's always these ghosts or incorporeal or dead or shadows or things that would be defined as like evil. D&D has a lot of them, but they are everywhere in so
Mm-hmm.
many different game systems and fiction and lore and urban fantasy, becoming a shadow of yourself. And how does that happen? How does a ghost or somebody who passes on go through so many rounds? And I write and create settings based off the idea of what is illegal, right? I have to find something criminal to be able to really start isolating a setting of what do the laws work like, what do people live, what's important to them. And in the lands of the dead, money doesn't matter. You're dead. Memento
True.
mori, the whole thing, everything that's there. So what is important? The memory of your life, the legacy that you leave. That's why your last will and testament, your legacy, your obituary, what happens to you, all of those things are relevant to your character. And so memory loss became the natural component that we decided to start putting in.
I was wondering kind of what it was because when I was writing, I saw influences and like I love the idea of how death works in a game, what it is, how we handle it, and my home setting's the same way. I think it's something that GMs, a lot of GMs, really dig in the idea of because we deal with the death of characters, NPCs, and monsters every fucking time we sit at the table, and you've given them a reason to have currency when they're there. Because what the hell would you do with coins? Except for certain coins, there are some specific ones, but that's a later thing. But I want to pull up our conviction mode here. So we've talked about this in, I don't want to say passing, but we have talked about the idea of conviction mode, what it was going to be, how we were going to use it, and kind of um how to convert it from 5e over. So you had some specific things about conviction. Actually, it wasn't even called conviction at the time. We didn't have a name. I just said there's game modes. And you're like, what are game modes? I'm like, it's kind of like a board game. It's like a board game. That's how I would explain it. And you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So it's like a board game, and that board game has rules. I'm like, yes. And I showed you one. You're like, okay, I it makes sense. We started setting it up, and you're like, this should be memory loss and the unraveling effect. I feel like this in the adventure is when you understood what Shadowdark tables were for. Like
Yes.
these two things.
It's a freaking template you put on your whole goddamn game, right?
Yes, yes.
Um, and I instantly understood that, like even back in 3.0 and 3.5 D&D, right? I loved templates that you slapped onto your character,
Yeah,
because they don't alter your class or your character, just something you unlock that's cool that you can play with, and Shadowdark gives you them for the entire party, which is infinitely better.
right. Right. And we put these together, and I put some of the effects on screen here just so people can see it. But like if you roll a 7, you take an extra die of damage from a good priest as an unraveling effect. And then your memory loss, like lose all memories of a heartbreaking moment in life. And you, as a GM, look, these are these moments as a GM where you get to have fun. And you go, well, you lose a memory from your past, something that was dear to your character. And in Shadowdark, you don't write these huge, elaborate backstories most of the time. It's emergent play. You learn through play. And this is that moment where you ask the player a question and they go, oh, I don't know. I'm like, well, that's okay. You don't come back for 1d4 rounds. I'll give you a minute to think about what that loss is as I move to the rest of people around still in combat. And every time it comes to you on this initiative pass, I'm going to ask you to give me part of that tale, and then I'm going to continue going through the combat rounds around you as you're telling me this story. I did this, dude. And the players lost it because
Oh,
they're hearing this person's memory that is, and I had to actually audibly leave them.
so we did not know this when we wrote the Black Ballad, but two things came into play the very first time that it was run. In the setting, there's this atomic grove that you go to where you face a reflection of yourself
Mm-hmm.
and you actually go over the consequences of your death, who you are, whatnot. We thought that that was just a little side part of the first opening chapter of the main campaign book.
It
It
wasn't.
has become the iconic part that everybody, the entire session
Mm-hmm.
becomes, and it's pivotal. It's like RPG therapy because people are like having like tears and feels, and when
Yeah.
one player starts ripping out stuff, the other players, naturally kind of come into that culture of go, wait,
Mm-hmm.
this is a thing, we're gonna hit this. And the other thing that we did, which was 6 months later after we had already written the campaign, we're already doing it, we realized this is an amazing session zero.
It
Hey,
is.
you don't know your character yet,
Mm-hmm.
right? Let's put you through some basic play. Let's just get right into the action. Something
Mm-hmm.
happens. What's a memory you're going to lose? Oh, I'm going to give you that time to think about it. Because you can ask a
Mm-hmm.
leading question as a storyteller.
Yep.
You can straight up be like, oh, I'm not going to ask about what your favorite memory or a heart love or a heart throb was,
Mm-hmm.
perhaps. You can straight up ask, like, what is something, give me a favorite memory that your character had done something illegal.
It can be anything.
And all of a sudden you just watch, ooh, wait, what have I done
Yeah.
that
You're a
put me on
rogue.
my
You're
path?
playing a thief. You died. What's the thing that you did that was horribly illegal? That imagine when all these people come to you and be like, "Oh, it's that motherfucker who did X," and whatever it was, you're like, I don't remember doing any of this stuff," and like
and
you're relearning the memory through other people.
and as a storyteller, you're like writing this shit down, and you're like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
totally gonna write some bad guys coming back into play later on
Mm-hmm.
this.
Mm-hmm. And
um
it really it lets you curate a story to something that is important to that player and really boutique it, like make it something special because they've told you something that was important to them. And in response, you are giving them something back. You're not getting socks for Christmas, guys. Okay? Like you're getting what you want.
and when you lose that memory, which the best part is when the players sacrifice their memories for other parts of the mechanics, or they choose to die to get some power,
Mm-hmm.
and you take a memory away to lose, then they have to figure out, how do I role play? What changes about my character if I did not have that foundational memory that made them do this thing?
Mm-hmm.
And that is not something you put on a stat. It's not a block, but it creates compelling stories
Yep.
at the table
Yep.
with an incredibly rules-like concept.
Yeah, and so the best part, like there's this little line in actually I can just show it. There's this little line in conviction mode right here where it says it takes 1d4 rounds for a character to rise from dead as if they completed rest. Now, we talked about getting power. If you know the system, rest is an 8-hour time frame, but you'll rise in 4 with it. That means you get your spells back for the day.
1d4.
Yeah, 1d4. You get your spells back for the day. You get your hit points back. Ailments that would go away in that time frame go away. Like think about like if you run in and take the hit for the team as the wizard to be reborn with the spells that you lost in Shadowdark because you failed rolls, or a priest that can't heal anymore because your god's not listening, so you die, so your wherever your power comes from, they listen again. Dude, it's wild. But it's not unlimited. It will end eventually, and it will
Yes,
not be good.
because you won't have those memories that make you who you are eventually, and you're going to end up as something else. But
Yeah.
the in the moment when the chips are down and you have that like fight that's worth having that fight for,
Yep.
this super saiyan badass moments you get,
Mm-hmm.
just, and as a storyteller, if your players are doing this at the table against the final boss that's above their league and they're
Mm-hmm.
burning their memories for
Yep.
a cause they believe in,
Yep.
all of us storytellers are going to sit there and go, okay, this is epic as hell. Let's put on
Yeah.
the good music,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
we have a thing now. Let's roll.
Yep. And so I guess that leads us to the interactive hook that we're going to be doing. We have something special that we want to do with the campaign we're doing. So we have been working, we've said this on other interviews if you've seen it, but we have been working the con circuit for a long time. We are carnies, but for gaming. Like, we have done all of it, right? And we've heard the stories about your favorite characters, and that's fun. We all have favorite characters, but as GMs, and as this being an afterlife and death based game, you're dead, now what? We want to know about your death, your favorite death, player character, NPC, monster. I don't care, but we want to hear the best. So we have samples because we figured if we're going to do this, we at least got to tell you what our samples are. So Rick, you said you have one out of the gate.
Oh, yes. So the nice thing is they don't even have to come, by the way, from Shadowdark or D&D or anything. Mine
Anything.
comes from Vampire the Masquerade. Right? It's a game that I played infinitely to the nines.
Mm-hmm.
And so mine, my favorite death that I watched happen is this storyteller I had brought in this arguably incredibly broken red list vile hunted member of society that was meant to be the big bad for every single player in the entire game that was there, but they were so untouchable, could not be killed, could never be touched, right? You know, the character was joked as laws of the night, as in they had everything in the book that they could possibly have as a power on their character, but they're still a vampire. And vampires have inherent weaknesses, and everybody likes to plan for the obvious weaknesses, your
Mm-hmm.
steak and the sunlight. So you stay away from those two things. You're going to be fine. Nothing could ever hurt you. And about 7 players of the game realized that this red list member, or this bad guy, was walking around at a very low level of humanity, right? Because they were evil. They were terrible, terrible people.
As vampires are.
And we arranged an entire moment to have that character, and the storyteller fell right into it, to commit another evil act to gain power, but in doing so would cause them to lose their last dot of humanity, which is the most important part of their character sheet, because when you lose that last dot, you don't have a character anymore. You are a mindless raving beast.
You're a monster.
At which point we promptly staked the hell out of him because he couldn't use his powers, ate his soul, took all of his power into the thing, and watched the fallout of this, everybody freaking out that this unkillable character had been tricked into death by his own greed.
Man, that's
And
perfect.
I loved the player. She came up with the most brilliant idea to end this character. And to this day was a new player at the game who conceived the entire plan. We helped her enact it. She was a brand new player to the game and the org and the LARP. And it kind of goes to show sometimes your experience and your power levels don't necessarily matter.
No, I don't think it does. I think that sometimes outside the box comes from being new. So for me, mine's really short. Mine is very recent. I was running Breacher's Living Wall for a group of 3. They were in a city that was slowly being taken over by, they thought it was a curse. They started encountering undead. They didn't know if they were zombies. They knew they were afraid of the light. They thought maybe vampires, but that wasn't the case. They end up fighting these creatures, and they got so beat up trying to leave this gigantic city, running through buildings, and they're carrying a fellow breacher out because you never leave a breacher behind. They've given up gear slots in Shadowdark, 2 each. So 2 people are carrying one half, the other 2 are carrying the other, and they're literally running out of this place with them. One by one, they start going down, and I privately tell them to make their saves. And in Shadowdark, you get a D4 plus your con rounds till you die. And if someone gets you in that time, or you roll a 20, you can get back up. But it's a 15-inch check for someone else to check you, and that's their action. And they're getting hounded by zombies that they didn't double tap on the way in. And this sounds so like classic, but they are running out of this place, and it's down to like them picking the weapons up off of the people who have dropped, fighting with a flaming sword to save themselves at this point to get out. As one drops, The second drops. One is 2 rounds and gets back up as a zombie. Another one is 1 round and gets back up as a zombie. And I did not have to kill a single player because they killed each other the whole way out. Because as you come back up, they're playing zombies and they're chasing this person down. And this dungeon chef is fighting with a flaming sword for his life at 1 hit point. No one's hitting him. And it was probably a good 6 rounds of this guy trying to flee in the dark. Only 5 foot of light from a flaming sword. And there's just something about Shadowdark taking dark vision away that makes all these moments feel cinematic. Because you get to explain them in ways that are like totally not you would get to do. So it has dark vision, magical light all over the place all the time. And they chased him. He was 1 movement away from getting out of this place. And died. And now that they're all dead and raised, their new characters are going back to get their old bodies out. Because I don't think you get to go to purgatory if you got turned into a zombie.
Oh, see, that's a good question. Is your soul still trapped in the body?
They are for these.
Then there you go.
So they're going to go back and slay their old selves to let their souls go to play in purgatory to bring the characters back that they want to play. It's a full cycle. And they're making characters literally just to go in there and take it on the chin to get their old characters back. I'm so excited for it. There was a moment where like everybody was in it. And normally player deaths are hard. But these player deaths are like everyone afterwards. This is the most cinematic moment we've had in so long. Just the way it all fell together. And it's something that I don't think you could have done in 5e. I think you would have been arguing round to round combat so long. Round to round combat was... And it was over. People were just like, I don't know what to do. That's my most famous recent one. But I have other ones I'm going to get out as we go through. But today we want to kind of cover this, go over what we're doing. We do have one final little piece to talk about before we leave this section. And we talk about what we're going to do next. And this one is more of a question for you, honestly. When you heard about us switching and making a Shadowdark version, developing this into Shadowdark, what was the feature within like actual Shadowdark that was like what cemented the reason to make this Kickstarter? Not me talking, but like what was the piece of Shadowdark that cemented it for you? They're like, yeah, we have to do this.
So, okay. And actually the Shadowdark book, Second Chances, features this heavily, obviously, because it's the one thing I thought of. We had this whole setting piece called The Storm of Broken Worlds. And The Storm of Broken Worlds, the big secret there, and I'll just tell it as what it is because it's not that much of a secret. You read it in the book and it's right up tells you. But to everybody there, it's a secret. That is the Storm of Broken Worlds is where the tomb of dead gods lie. And it is constantly a torrent of storm and energy and things and memory just haunting it, but it's meant to be sort of this big dungeon crawl expanse or, area where there's no maps, it's hard to see. And when Shadowdark baked light mechanics in, that is instantly when I was like, no, the Storm of Broken Worlds and what it means to go traverse in the graves of dead gods. I could see a rule system that fit exactly this entire segment that we did not write adventures in within the original Black Ballad campaign. And I was like, nope, this is where we tell those tales.
Well, I was always kind of wondering what the big one was because we've talked about things a lot. So on screen right now, I have the cover right now for Black Ballad Second Chances, the parental advisory that's on there, which I still think was like the moment for the cover. Having that little sticker on there. We're going to be doing a lot more of these. This is just like, I think we're in 3 of God knows how many we're going to be recording. We hope these help you kind of understand why we're doing the Kickstarter, what it's about, why we're doing Shadowdark. That we're not just doing Shadowdark because it's the hip thing right now. We're doing it because we love it. We love what it is. But we'll be back with more and more segments coming up. But for now, just think about this. I want to leave you with questions to put down below. For you as a player, as a GM, what is a good death in a campaign? What makes a good death for you at a table? And second, how do you keep the idea of dying tragic but still playable? Those are the things I want to leave you with. Put comments down below. These will be on a couple different channels, but wherever you see it from, thank you for watching, and we'll be back more very soon. Bye, everybody.